Women's March co-president Tamika Mallory is back saying crazy things about Israel, and today I'll tell you why it matters in the Ontario election and in Canadian politics in general. Tamika Mallory is back making news again. Now, for those of you who don't know who she is, Mallory is one of the co-presidents of the National Women's March. Remember that thing? That was the vulgar feminist anti-Trump tantrum that spread to Canada and now just won't go away. It was also the very same march where I was punched by a male feminist named Dion Buse on the steps of the legislature in Edmonton. Now, Tamika Mallory, that co-president, has close ties to noted anti-Semite and leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan. And this is what Farrakhan said about the Jews just a few short months ago. Just listen.
Folks are going down, and Satan is going down. And Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled the cover off of that satanic Jew. And I'm here to say, your time is up. Your world is through. And the good Jews, you better separate from these satanic Jews lest they take you down to hell with them, because that's where they're headed.
Now, Farrakhan wasn't saying anything there that he hasn't said 100 times before. Farrakhan has a long history of calling Jews evil, swindlers, his enemy, and part of some global conspiracy to control the world. And in that crowd that very day was Tamika Mallory, who endorses Farrakhan, calling him the greatest of all time on her Instagram. She even refused to denounce him after that very speech. But none of that stopped Canada's federal NDP party from having her as the keynote speaker at their recent national convention in Ottawa. Remember that convention? That was the convention where the NDP broke out in a very public civil war on live television when their anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions motion didn't go far enough for many of the NDP delegates there. Mallory was at the convention to talk about her activism as a Black woman, her activism as a feminist, and her general left-wing fist-pumping craziness to a captive audience of New Democrat activists, union leaders, supporters, and New Democrat politicians. And now Mallory's at it again with her bigotry. Given Mallory's close ties to a noted anti-Semite, it should really be no surprise that this time she took to Facebook Live to deny the indigenous nature of the Jewish people inside the state of Israel. She even went so far as to call the creation of Israel a crime. You know what? Just watch her Facebook Live for yourself. It's gross. Here.
This is their land. And when you go to someone's home and you need a place to stay, you ask, can I come into your home and stay here, and can we peacefully coexist? You don't walk into someone else's home needing a place. It's clear. You needed a place to go. Cool, we got that. I hear that. But you don't show up at someone else's home needing a place to stay and deciding that you are going to throw them out and hurt the people who are on that land and to kill, steal, and do whatever you're going to do to take that land. That, to me, is unfair. It's a human rights crime. I stand with my brothers and sisters and siblings in Palestine.
Sorry, lady, but that's crazy. Even if we disregard biblical history, there's this little field of study called archaeology that says the Jews were there first, and then there are all those wars that Israel just keeps on winning to defend its borders. Anyway, what I want to know now is, why are none of the mainstream media outlets and journalists in Ontario confronting the NDP for their close ties to this anti-Semite? Why aren't the NDP needing to answer for having someone as anti-Israel as Mallory be their keynote speaker at their convention? And why aren't the mainstream media journalists confronting Andrea Horwath, the NDP leader in Ontario, for this, especially since she has a candidate named Taslim Riaz who posted a so-called inspirational meme about Hitler. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due and call out everyone else for running cover for the NDP like the mainstream media did in Alberta in 2015. Toronto Sun columnist Joe Warmington and Sue-Ann Levy are doing the work that needs to be done researching the NDP candidates in Ontario, and the rest of the mainstream media should be ashamed of themselves for keeping quiet about the bigotry Sue-Ann and Joe keep discovering. Let's pretend Andrea Horwath were a conservative politician for a second. How do we think her ties to a noted anti-Semite would be received by the media? Oh, and it doesn't even have to be ties to a noted anti-Semite. Conservatives just have to be guilty of talking to people that the media party really doesn't like. And actually, we don't even have to imagine. We see this happening in practice every time a conservative politician goes on the CBC. If a high-profile right-wing thinker goes on CBC, let's say Jordan Peterson or Andrew Scheer, the host wastes questions asking them about us at The Rebel, trying to get them to denounce the CBC's competition. It's weird. Just watch this.
Speaking out against the federal bill, C-16, and gender pronouns and so on, the federal government cut your funding for research. Rebel Media came in and did a crowdfunding project for you, raised about $200,000. After Charlottesville and the riots, the protests there, many people cut ties with Rebel Media, including the Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, saying that it could be seen as giving hate groups a platform. You still go on there, so I'm wondering, why do you go on Rebel Media after Charlottesville?
You don't think we should talk to people on the right?
So that's why?
I talk to people who want to talk to me. Generally speaking, I'm trying to be careful about it, but I don't see any reason not to talk to people who are on the right. I talk to people who are on the left when they want to talk, which is very, very rarely.
Tamika Mallory is really no better than Richard Spencer. She's just a woman on the left who thinks the very same things as Spencer does about the Jews. Mallory is just fashionable enough to play her identity politics from the virtue-signaling far left instead of the fascist, bad haircut far right. But you will never see Wendy Mesley confront Jagmeet Singh or Andrea Horwath or even Rachel Notley about their NDP associations with Tamika Mallory, because this is just another case of, if it's not a Tory, it is not a story. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. What you just saw there is the daily video that I do here at The Rebel, but did you know that I have my own weekly full-length show? It's aptly called The Gun Show, and I talk to some of those conservative thinkers who aren't scared of the CBC. But to get access to my show and the rest of our amazing premium content, treat yourself to a Rebel subscription today.